Of the manifesto is a working economy for the people. Within a few weeks, 3 weeks to be exact, we will be going for general elections. This is an important election. It marks the transition from the old to the new, from totalitarianism, tyranny, and dictatorship to democracy. It marks the transition from exclusivity to inclusivity, a transition from corruption to accountability, a transition, importantly, from international isolation to international integration. It marks a transition from politics of hate, rancor, and acrimony to the politics of rational disputation. This election, ladies and gentlemen, is about the people of Zimbabwe. This election is not about individual political parties. It is not about individual political fiefdoms. This election is not about political leaders displaying their feathers like political peacocks. This election is about the people of Zimbabwe. In the MDC, it is and it always shall be about the people. The people of Zimbabwe are living in abject poverty and misery. There is massive unemployment, and the cost of living is beyond the reach of many people. Currently, there are families who do not know where the next meal is going to come from. The conditions of service of all our workers, including civil servants, are appalling and poor. There is exclusion of the majority from economic life of Zimbabwe. The economics of Zimbabwe, the economic life of Zimbabwe is now a preserve of a few corrupt and powerful families. Our hospitals have been reduced to death traps with no medicines. Our doctors and nurses have left the country for greener pastures. Our minerals are being plundered by a few and corrupt individuals. And the prices of agricultural commodities are beyond the reach of many people. Zimbabwe is currently a pariah state, internationally isolated and miserable. We want to change that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time to change a government. We now need a new government in this country. We now need a new president in this country. We need a democratic, sensitive, pro-people and pro-poor government. The MDC shall provide that government. The MDC has demonstrated time without number that it is truly a people's vanguard. It has always worked in the best interest of the people of Zimbabwe. Under Morgan Tsvangirai, the MDC agreed to go into the government of national unity. This was despite the fact that 300 of our finest young people had been murdered in cold blood. The likes of Tondela Indira, Beta Chokururama, Godfrey Kauzani, Shepherd Jani, Mai Chiroto, and many others, Keni Nyeve, and many others. They had been murdered in cold blood. But the MDC put that aside and said we are going into this inclusive government for 3 things. Number 1, it is to stop the bloodletting that was happening in Zimbabwe. Number 2 was to stabilize the economy for the betterment of every Zimbabwean. Number 3, it was to come up with a democratic, people-driven constitution. The MDC, as Dr. Mashakada has said, is a party of indelible and timeless values. The values of freedom, justice, equality, solidarity, democracy, and the respect of the rule of law. Zimbabwe's social, political, and economic conundrum can only be resolved through social democracy. Now, the MDC, what have been the achievements of the MDC over the past 5 years? It must be remembered that in this parliament, Zanu PF enjoyed a supermajority. And therefore, when it came to voting, Zanu PF always prevailed because of the superiority of its numbers. But one of the most important things that the MDC did was to safeguard the constitution of Zimbabwe. Remember, there were a few issues that we put in the constitution in 2013. One of them was devolution. The second was the preservation of the women's quota. The third one was the introduction of the youth quota in parliament. And the fifth one was the introduction of the 30% women's quota in councils. The MDC was able to preserve that. The MDC was also able very well to fight against the delimitation that came to parliament. As a result of the MDC's effort, the delimitation report was condemned by the entire parliament. But what ZEC then did and the government then did is beyond our control. The MDC, if you go to the Hansard, has been very vocal against corruption. It has been very vocal against the impunity. And I remember when Joanna Mamombe and company were facing their ordeal, we took the government to task. So we provided our oversight function. But this is not the same as we would do if we were controlling the majority in parliament. Pane vandibvunza kuti ndinofunga kuti ndinohwina here. Regai ndikuti baba chichavhoterwa nevana veZimbabwe havasi kuvhotera vengano, havasi kuvhotera vanhu vanotaura zvisina maturo. Vana veZimbabwe vari kuvhotera vanhu vanotaura zvido zvavo. Pari zvino ibato rimwe chete riri kutaura zvido zvevana veZimbabwe, ibato reMDC. Vana veZimbabwe vachavhotera free education, free health care, free maternity, interest free loans kune vanhu vanoda kutanga mabusiness. Vachavhotera kuti mitengo yefertilizer idzikiswe. War veterans nevana veZimbabwe vachavhotera kuti mapensions agadziriswe. Saka kune avo vatinokwikwidzana navo vanofunga kuti vanotikunda, ngavandipe 87 vangu mugoona shura rinobuda. Kana vaine nharo, isai vamunangagwa apa, vaMwonzora apa, navachamisa apa, moti taurai nyaya makateerera. We challenge our opponents to a public debate, televised national debate about national issues, about the people of Zimbabwe. Our superiority is unquestionable. On the assumption that the obstacles that have been placed before us, for example, being discriminated against by ZEC, while others were given an extension to pay, we were refused to pay. Now, if those obstacles are removed, including unequal access to the media, especially the state media. If the other obstacle, and I want to share this with you, the MDC, Triple C, and Zanu PF entered into an agreement where some donors and well-wishers were going to help us train our polling agents and to sponsor the deployment of those polling agents. And each political party was going to train 33,000 polling stations, polling agents, to be in charge of 11,000, roughly 11,000 polling stations. And what did the Zanu PF do? They started writing in the newspapers, threatening the donor that this was foreign funding. But this is the Zanu PF which received that funding in 2018. And this fund was not coming from the donor to the political parties to secure a vote or to cause them to be voted for. It was to ensure transparency. It was to make sure that the playing field is even. But Zanu PF has vetoed that because it has access to national resources. Now they are doing this. They are putting this obstacle so that Mr. Mwonzora and his party are not able to field all the polling agents. Pachishona tinoti vari kutamba coward. Ngavamire kutamba coward iyoyo topinda zvakanaka mu election. In this election, assuming it will be free and fair, assuming that there are no obstacles, there is no question about it. Our superiority is there and it speaketh for itself. Thank you very much.